Hey, how you doing? You like the look? You like the new look? The new album? Yes.
Just wait. By April 1st, I would say a billion people.
Oh, thank you, dear. Oh, nice to box. You're the best. You still will.
Need anything else?
No, I'm good.
All right. Yeah.
Are you ready to dance?
Are you ready to dance?
Are you ready to dance? Are you ready? Oh, what is that? Oh, woo! Ee! It's coming. It's coming. Woo! The big splat is coming. Woo! Keep on dancing, kids. I'm up here in the space station.
This is Fresh Air. In his latest review, TV critic
Hey.
Status and review your contact information. Wind. Margin calls went out. While the financial media obsesses over every tweet in the S&P 500 like it's a toddler's heartbeat monitor, there has been something else much more worrisome going on in the financial world. You see, there's a market that is arguably more important than the stock market that is actually signaling a potentially devastating blow to the economy, and that is coming very soon. Or it might already be here, depending on who you ask. And well, all of this is because in this last week, treasuries and bonds might actually be showing a full-on financial crisis is imminent, or that a quiet to long collapse of the economy is underway. You see, the treasury bond market is a reflection of how confident investors are in government solvency, inflation, stability, and economic growth. And when things go well, bond yields stay predictable. When things go sideways, yields spike like a 13-year-old watching the dawn of the dead for the first time. And guess which one we're seeing now? Well, let's just say the dead are rising. So what has happened in the bond market? Well, let's start off with something obvious. The US bond market has had a historic spike over the last week. So in just 1 week, the 10-year treasury yield jumped from 3.99% to 4.52%, a 53 basis point leap. That marks its sharpest rise since the George W. Bush administration, shortly after they announced their war on terror in 2001. Meanwhile, the 30-year Treasury yield hit 4.92%, its largest three-day increase since 1982. Yes, 1982 is the last time we've seen something like this, back when mullets were in and inflation was a national hobby. So why does any of this matter? Well, it's because Treasury yields aren't just boring government debt, they're the foundation of global finance. Everything from mortgage rates to corporate lending to how much the US government pays to service its own debt is tied to these yields. A sharp rise like this means bond prices are crashing and fast. You know, I've seen a lot of traders describing this as a full-blown liquidation and fire sale of US treasuries. The kind of desperate selling you only see when rich people are nervous that they're about to lose a lot of money. Even the most conservative investors like pension funds and insurers, they're getting killed here too. And simultaneously, smart money is quietly packing its bags and heading for the exits in the bond market. This week, global bond funds saw $25.7 billion in outflows, the biggest exodus since April 1st of 2020. And it wasn't like, there was some global pandemic that we knew nothing about at the time that was ready to crash the world economy. Nah, that didn't happen at all. But regardless, that's the perspective of what's happening for bonds at the moment. We're talking pandemic levels of panic. And to put in perspective the $25.7 billion of outflows, that's more than the GDP of Iceland that flushed out of the market in just a few days. US bonds lost almost $15.6 billion. European bond funds bled $12.7 billion. High-yield junk bonds and leveraged loan funds combined $22.6 billion walked out of the door as well. And well, the translation for all of this is that everyone is ditching long-term investments and running to the digital equivalent of a bunker lined with dollar bills. But there's another factor throwing gasoline on the fire, and that is the rapid unwinding of leveraged basis trades. So these things are Wall Street's favorite party trick. They're buying treasury bonds and shorting treasury futures to pocket the difference. It's boring, it's low risk, and makes billions when everything is, calm and steady in the market. But here's the thing. These trades are built on debt. Lots and lots and lots of debt. And when prices start to drop, that debt starts demanding its money back. You can think of this as the bond equivalent of a margin call. And in April, roughly $800 billion worth of these trades began to unwind. Margin calls went out, funds started dumping treasuries to stay afloat, the dominoes fell, and suddenly the world's safest asset was in full-blown crisis mode. Now, while the US bond market was having a meltdown, Europe wasn't exactly enjoying a stroll through the vineyards with their bonds either. The UK had to cancel a £600 million bond auction because the market was just too chaotic. German bond yields jumped, Italian spreads widened, and emerging markets, well, let's just forget about them. Developing nations that were hoping to borrow on the international market in April, well, that's not happening. Not one emerging sovereign market successfully issued new bonds this month. And with US yields surging, borrowing costs abroad are rising too. It's kind of like a virus. This is like a contagion of bonds spreading throughout the world in real time right now. But don't worry, I'm sure this will all turn out fine. So now let's address the real elephant in the room here, and that is US Treasuries. They've always been the safe haven of the global financial system. They're kind of like the Motel 6 of investing. They're boring, predictable, they're always open. Yeah, sure, they get a few rats every now and then, but everyone's willing to tolerate that. However, now people are starting to second guess even that. Normally, when the world gets risky, everyone flocks to treasuries. But in April of 2025, we have seen a shocking reversal. The dollar dropped, bond yields spiked, and gold has been soaring. Investors are saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't stay at that rat-infested motel anymore. There's a Hilton down the road, maybe we should try them. Now, the final insult came when the US held a 3-year treasury auction and saw the worst demand it has had in years. Foreign buyers who usually scoop up US debt like it's on clearance didn't show up.
All seniors on Medicare and Medicaid in the United States are qualified for the senior.
A couple of days ago, MSNBC ran a segment where they talked about the fact that the United States of America could end up being the next entity that Donald Trump bankrupts. And they began talking, of course, about the fact that we're having other countries that are now kind of refusing to buy American debt. We have other countries like China who holds a lot of our debt. They're now saying that there's simply no market for U.S. goods in China, and we'll just move on. Other countries are also moving on as Donald Trump destroys our economy. Interest in T-bills has gone way down. By interest, I mean the purchasing of it. So that's harmful to the U.S. economy. Like outside the tariffs, the T-bills not being purchased is a huge, huge problem for the United States. That's basically buying our debt so that we then have the money to be able to, function. So big problem there. Donald Trump is, of course, tanking the U.S. economy because of his ass backwards policies.
Is actually still accessible to the. Well, something very interesting is happening right now on TikTok, on social media. You should pay close attention, not just because of what it reveals about the global economy, because of what it reveals about the psychological, the cultural,
I cut my hair for him.
and the civilizational fraud that's at the core of
Do we
Western
look
society,
alike?
Western civilization, the Western world. You've got Trump's new tariffs against Chinese goods, and now Chinese manufacturers are doing something about that that's unprecedented. They're going on social media and
Do we
they're
look
saying,
alike?
we're the ones who make your luxury goods. We make your handbags, we make your shoes, we make your designer sunglasses, and so on. If you think that they come from Milan or from Paris, no, they come from China. And they're not just revealing that they're the ones who are manufacturing these goods, they're revealing the costs. They're revealing the margins, the markup. They're saying this handbag that sells for $2,000 in the West, well, it only costs $40 to make, and we'll make it, and we'll sell it to you directly. Now pause and reflect about that, on the depth of what that means. This is more than just a business revelation. This is a civilizational unmasking. They're exposing that the West actually produces nothing, but they take credit for everything. Just like with colonization. The Western world has built its global prestige and its reputation on the central myth that it's the home of excellence, and that this excellence is a byproduct of their unequaled freedom. That Western societies are the pinnacle of quality, of craftsmanship, of innovation and refinement and so on. And all of this because they have so much liberty and so much freedom. So creativity and excellence thrive, right? Brilliance and hard work. All of that flourishes in the great sunlight of Western democracy. Meanwhile, actual excellence is outsourced. The only thing that you do is slap your label on what others make. You slap your logo on things that are made by the people who you demonize, who you disrespect, who you denigrate, who you look down upon, who you call peasants. Everything about your success is actually made possible by people who you call losers. The only thing that the West excels at is branding, taking credit. Your whole economy is a scam. A logo, a stamp, a label, and then they inflate the price 1,000-fold. That's what you make. You make logos. It's not a system of productivity. It's a system of appropriation. It's an economy of logos. It takes what others produce, stamp their name on it, and then sell it back to the world at an obscene profit. That's not excellence, that's fraud. And no one should be surprised by this, because this is a pattern that repeats throughout your so-called society, your so-called civilization. From Elvis Presley singing Hound Dog to the crown jewels of the British monarchy stolen from India. You're that dumb jock who puts his name on a test that he paid someone else to take for him. That's America. And you're literally charging people for nothing. It's like how you buy a $5 coffee that's 80% foam. Well, now the Chinese manufacturers are going online and they're telling you that you're only getting a thimble of coffee, a thimble of espresso, and 2 tablespoons of milk, and it should only actually cost you less than $1. That's the equivalent of what they're doing. You're literally paying for the privilege of drinking from a cup with a logo on it. So how fake is that? I mean, imagine being some rich idiot who's spending all of this money on a handbag, and you thought that your wealth was buying you some sort of exclusivity. Who thought that this branded handbag or that branded handbag was actually made from a higher quality leather than a suburban soccer mom could afford, only to find out that even the highest quality of cowhide is actually still accessible to the janitor of their Manhattan apartment building. But what are they going to do now to try to be exclusive, to try to be fancy? Get handbags made out of giraffe skin, some endangered species? See, they're even scamming the wealthy. It's a surrealist economy. They make you poorer than you should be, and then they charge you for things far more than their actual cost. It's just like financialization, the same way that that's fake money, it's fake luxury. It's all created by spin. Your coffee is all foam. Now, theoretically, with these Chinese manufacturers, what they're doing should open up all sorts of opportunities for people in the West. Because now you can buy directly from these factories. All the factories that make these products. You could buy wholesale, you could buy bulk, you could create your own supply chains. You could even route them through other factories, say in Indonesia or in Malaysia or wherever else, and then have those factories slap your own logos or your own tags on them, saying that they were made in that country to bypass the tariffs. And boom, you have your own business. You can even make your own designs with identical materials, with the identical quality standards of all those luxury brand companies. But I know that the only people who are going to even do that, most likely in the U.S., are going to be immigrants, because Americans themselves are not actually anymore an enterprising people, if they ever were. You don't actually come from a culture that has initiative. I even saw one American on social media whose response to the videos being made by the Chinese manufacturers was, "Oh yeah, I'd love to get a Birkin bag at an affordable price. So if you're one of those factories that make the Birkin bags, well, DM me and I'll buy it." See, this is the thinking. You contact me and I'll pay for it. I'm willing to consume at a lower price. There's no initiative here. As if that factory is going to just jump at the chance to DM some random guy looking for a bargain. This is the thinking level. And imagine still wanting to have a Birkin bag after finding out that they're not actually prestigious or luxurious at all. But your mind is still so pro.
What do you get when Zaxby's, an iconic chicken joint, applies this delicious crispy seasoning to...
I worry that we're going to see
the rest of the world, I mean, Europe and China, the next obvious move for the European Union and China is to get together and to create a trade zone, in effect, that excludes the United States. So you have Fortress America existing in one sphere and the rest of the world existing in another sphere. And, Wolf, let me just say this. For 80 years, the United States has profited off of a world trade system. Not perfect. I mean, I am the first to admit many things went wrong. A lot of things could be and should have been changed and will be, if we had stayed on that same track, could have been changed. But right now, what has happened is the entire world trade system that offered us peace and prosperity for 80 years has been basically thrown out. We are now in a trade war with much of the rest of the world. And that means, I mean, nobody wins in wars. Nobody wins in a trade war. And my great worry is that we're going to see everybody lose, and ultimately tensions mount in all quarters of this world, because everybody, obviously, it comes down to jobs, it comes down to wages. Every household in the world is going to be affected more or less directly or indirectly by this.
Robert Reich said the Trump regime is working to deter dissent. Anyone who goes against Trump could end up on a target list. This is having a chilling effect on 5 major pillars of society: university, science, the media, law, and the arts. It's straight out of the fascist playbook. That's why we remain Trump Central here at the Stephanie Miller Show. We will never, ever surrender. Oh, by the way, in other petty news, I forgot. They swapped Obama's portrait with Trump's assassination photo, and now loyalists in governmental positions are voluntarily wearing golden busts of his profile. We are watching Trump's cult of personality turn America into an authoritarian dictatorship in real time.
They swear allegiance to Trump and not to the Constitution.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
Yeah.
Because they know what you know and what I know is that they are the 1%. We are the 99%.
Yeah, I feel like that's starting to sink in with people. We're not getting stock tips. We're not getting, I mean, by the way, this one, I saw some people posted bills online. Some businesses are now showing the Trump tariff fee on their bills to customers. Yeah, all right, one more. This is AOC, sorry.
I hope that we all see now that the White House's tariff shuffle here didn't have anything to do with manufacturing like they claimed. It was about manipulating the markets. It was about hurting retirees and everyday people in the sell-off so Trump could quietly enrich his friends who he nudged to buy the dip before reversing it all.
Guys, please. I mean, this is no more than what Donnie did the first 4, right? Killed close to 1 million people by his inconvenient kind of rollout of the pandemic, and he tanked the economy, right? And then JoJo came in and spunk it back. But again, there is no real difference between JoJo and Carrot Head, really. I mean, there is in external looks. I mean, JoJo had been a senator for 60 years, so he was genetically engineered to be that character actor, right? And he did whatever he was told. And JoJo, is again just a used car salesman, whereas Carrot Head, he is a game show, host, and he is hosting the game show of the end of American exceptionalism, right? Where everyone is going to become the living dead. Good luck. Be happy. Now, the only way you can stop this, and this hasn't happened before. We've had about 20 of these, right? But because of the internet and TikTok and a whole bunch of other things, and that basically the American public has been so transformed into a bovine, population that it's like, good luck. It's and because I saw this coming, 60 years ago when I was, longer than that, 75, 76, 64 years ago, I saw, my father took me to the Nevada test range. He was still in the game, even though he gave up his colonel's uniform for a business suit. He's still, as they say, connected. And he basically took me. I used to go with him. Hey, you want to go to Edwards? Sure. You want to go to? Sure. What would a 5-year-old not want to buy a B-52? Anyway, so that really gave me a worldview that most people don't see. Like seeing the nuclear explosion, like at 3 a.m, seeing we weren't facing the explosion. I had a lead cape over me, and I had welder's glasses on, and I'm looking at the concrete wall of the bunkhouse, and basically there's about 20 guys out there, mostly generals, colonels, and corporate guys, right? And we hear this, right? All right, 10, 9, 3, 2, 1. And it's really silent. And a flash of light. And I'm wearing, it's 3 a.m, darker than dark, no moon, and I'm wearing welder's glasses, and the flash is so bright that I see our shadows being etched on that concrete wall. And these two hands come down on either side of me, and this gigantic concussive wave comes, and they keep me from flying across the parking lot. And then my dad says, turn around. And I turn around. He said, put your hand up. And I could see the bones in my hand through welder's goggles. And then through the goggles, I could see elements in that mushroom cloud that don't exist. And they look like, they were dimensional creatures, quite interesting. And no one talks about that, no one quite really talks about anything anymore, And all the social media who's, going on about Johnny or this or that. Yeah, well, that's fine. But it's right. It is what it is. And we had 4 years to experience it because he was as chaotic then. He just didn't have the money and the personnel of the Heritage Foundation, right, to create a fascist document of the 2025. And as that person said, going after, the law, schools, education, free speech, and free thought, see, you can have any mutton thing on on the media as long as it is the as is known in the comments, loyal opposition. That photo of FDR, Winston Churchill, and Joe Stalin at Tehran in Iran, right? So the whole new world dominance was put together there in the capital of the Persian Empire, and they were in on it too, right? So when Iran, had oil found, they knew about it before World War I. Once it really started getting produced, the guy who was legally, they became a democracy and became a country in the United Nations, and they had an election, and they got this guy who was, an economist, a lawyer, and been a politician. And he basically had made some money as a businessman. And so instead of going on and making more money, he had enough. He sent his kids off to Europe to go to school. And he basically said, okay, I'm going to run for president. And he won big time. And he wasn't going to become a communist, but he wanted to nationalize certain elements of the government, right? One was their major resource of their GDP, right? And that was oil. And he wanted to put it into a environment that wouldn't be taken by imperialists. Because yes, so we get our country and we get to have a politician, but when Gulf Mineral Oil and Exxon owns the oil in the ground and not the ground, it's an issue here. They're paying 20 cents a barrel and selling it for 70. So anyway, so this guy, he becomes president and he starts doing this, and he is free healthcare house. He basically did what Muammar Gaddafi did for Libya. And Libya's oil, he had Libya crude, right? And that was so pure that you almost didn't have to, crack it. You could turn it into whatever you wanted to. It was so pure, right? So his oil sold for more. And he went along with, he was part of the royal opposition, So, we hate the Satan, but he pretty much did anything they said. But his basic, quote unquote, terrorists were there to assassinate and cause chaos all through Africa for the Western crew. And, that doesn't go down in the history books. It's there. It's Sierra Leone. It's just the final dynamic of what was going on in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, early O's, right? Now they are ready to rebrand, and we're going to end up as, Star Trek's Federation, right? Because we're already out in space. We're already mining all those asteroids. We're already doing all that stuff. And we're already, trading with other species from other galaxies, And yet we're polluting our planet with, and the carbon, come on, this is a carbon-based planet, right? We're all made out of carbon. The thing that's, environmentally killing us is what you take with those coal and that oil and that natural gas, and you make these devilish substances like plastic and gasoline and you name it. That's what's killing us. So, before the Civil War, there was like 3 cases of cancer for every 1,000 people. That's, after the Civil War is kind of when they started keeping serious statistics. And pretty not until, after World War II did we really start seeing the cancer rate go up. But still in 1960, it was still like, 20 people getting cancer for every 1,000 people in America. But now it's close to every other person in America is getting cancer. So good luck with that. Now, I got a lot of things wrong with me, but all I do is pray and say, I am healing myself with my own stem cells through my conscious intent of my love's co-creation with God. My love's co-creation with God is what is healing me. Right? And my faith, it's not something I manifest. It is the thing that is given me through God's grace. And that grace is transported to me through Jesus's unconditional forgiveness. Now, these character actors, God, Jesus, Buddha, Vishnu, whatever, right? That's all they are, character actors. And whether they existed or not, who knows? Definitely, you read the Torah, the Tablet, and the Kabbalah, you realize that what's in the King James as the Old Testament has nothing to do, it's not the Torah, right? So it's an interesting experience that we're living through. And it's up to us. We are put here in this sandbox. This isn't let's make a deal. This isn't a transactional kind of thing with you and God. No, it's there to you to learn to love unconditionally, to forgive unconditionally, to look at things 4 blocks away. I mean, that's really where I got that idea from when I saw the nuclear explosion in
hopefully y'all enjoy it. Okay, eat as much as you can.
the West, right? The Nevada test range, not too far from Las Vegas. Anyway, there we are. So there's 3 of you there. Anybody want to say anything? Right. So, I'm all the roads that lead me out from the deep green are pretty much destroyed. And I've shown you videos here. I'll show you another one.
All in the morning.
Yeah, by the way, it was Tristan Snell who mentioned this idea. I was talking to Rude about it. He said there's numerous calls to investigate whether Trump and his cronies engaged in insider trading, pump and dump, etc. But it won't be the DOJ, it won't be the SEC, it won't be Congress. You know who can investigate this? New York AG Letitia James, who has jurisdiction over Wall Street. So you know what? We'll take it wherever we can get it. Justice or because I think that's where you throw up your hands. You're like, who are you going to call? DOJ, SEC, FBI, all under.
Ghostbusters.
Right. That's just as plausible.
I mean,
have we thought of crossing the streams? Maybe it's time to break the rules.
wasn't Ghostbusters based in Lower Manhattan?
Yes.
So I think that Letitia
Who
James
can you
would
call?
have
There you go.
jurisdiction over them.
There you go.
I think Trump and Slimer have a lot of similar qualities as well. So maybe, they can tame him.
Oh, yes.
Speaking of Elon Musk, I can't get enough of the Rolling Stone story. Elon Musk is annoying, unfunny, and should probably take a drug test. Trump officials reported. No kidding. Really? I love Mike Myers, Elon Musk, because it's just he does him exactly as glitchy as he is in real life, right? And falling down the K-holes. A senior official describes the billionaire as an awkward and obnoxious hole, a preening, awkward spectacle of greed, stupidity, and self-importance. It's easy to feel somewhat nauseated by the billionaire. Rolling Stone says Trump officials have characterized him as incredibly unfunny, radically annoying, crazy, potentially need a regular mandatory drug test.
Well,
Marco Rubio, for one, has not hidden his disdain for Musk. Trump lieutenants have walked out of meetings and earnestly asked one another if they thought Musk was high. I'm going to say pretty much the answer is always yes.
Sure.
Yes, of course he is. Let's see, blah, blah, blah. Talking to the guy sometimes is like listening to really rusty nails on a chalkboard. He's just the most irritating person I've ever had to deal with.
Oh, yes.
That's saying something. Oh, God.
So
Okay.
here's
More from AOC.
the roads
Okay.
are all
You're
full
right.
of
And we must
cars
acknowledge the terrifying moment that we are in right
for
now.
about a quarter mile
And that
each
what we are
direction.
hearing
It's like
and
this.
seeing with our own eyes is, in fact, happening.
Agent on duty. They're selling everything to stupid people who are buying it up. And there's no drinking water there. And the little destroyed roads are basically, they can't be made any bigger. They're not going to get super highways. Sorry, kids. Sorry that there's no super highways coming.
What do we have here? Ooh, death personified. There it is. There's death. That's how you're going to end up, kids. The flies and those little guys. Yep. That's just one box of it. It never ends. This is a metaphor of humans' inability to cope with having a sustainable life. So I tried to this is everything that I had I didn't get rid of in 2017 when I kind of crash landed here. Had this place since 03 and built this thing in 06. It's what we call the garage. Garage music is made here. And this is anthropological. So yeah, that's kind of
I got something else to show you. So this is what all the
Since
roads
the event,
within
since
50 miles look like.
September, when the Hurricane Helene came through here and obliterated everything, the developers have bought up all the properties.
See that
the
black line there?
Kogi folk
That's
had,
where the road used to be.
and they're rushing to build houses. All of the roads, these are secondary roads. These are farm roads. These aren't state roads. This is the shape that our roads are in all over. I mean, if I, took the time to stop at every inch of the roads, the 50 or so thousand miles of secondary and tertiary roads, this is what it looks like. The state and county have done nothing for 5 months. September, October, November, December, January, here it is, February. And that's because 321, which was the state federal road going north-south, got washed out. And the rich people, the developers, want it replaced with a 4-lane highway, which is going to cost $2 or $3 billion. And they'd much rather have their big trucks come up and down this road. Tractor trailers come up and down this road. Right? And someone who lives around here has just thrown some stone on the road up here. Just kind of went and got some stone and threw it up here. Because this was like a deep chasm. It's like you went down into it and never came out. But this ain't fixing the road. You know? This ain't fixing the road. And these are the big trucks that are coming up and down this road.
Yep. So that's pretty much everywhere. That's kind of where I live is Gaza. Where I live is Sierra Leone. Where I live is, Ukraine. And it's within the next 4 months, it's going to go wow, because the new branded civilization is going to go see H.G.'s movie, Things to Come. It's a book he wrote around 37, just before World War II, and they made it into a movie. It's really good because it's exactly what's going on. So, are you out there in your community or talk? I talk like this to everyone, right? I'm at the Walmarts, I'm talking to the people in Walmarts, right? Reading palms and talking about everything, right? I'm at church, I do, right? And the people don't want to hear this. Now, the people I work with, 3 or 4 churches, stitching together to be a community thing that holds 4 counties together. They, I've told them all about what was going to happen 10 years ago. Didn't listen, kept telling them. Then I got them kind of to work together. Why are you going to that other church? I said, well, such a good people. So we started working together. Wow, that was great. And then the colossal flooding came, which basically came from underground. It didn't rain up here, right? And so it's So you think things are weird now, kids? Good luck. What's coming up is so I'd love to hear from you guys. The Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, or here on the live chat, or here, make comments when you watch the show. Right? So I gotta go. I hope you like this one. I'll try and do another one. Maybe I'll do one a little later this afternoon. Maybe not. Maybe one tomorrow. Maybe not. Maybe one this weekend. Probably. Anyway, talk to you later.